Government shutdown has been averted. No, this is not a repeat. We had another one, and we just missed it. But that didn't stop the White House from playing class warfare. Listen.
22,000 millionaires pay less effective tax rate, under 15%. So we have inequities. The American people are screaming out, saying it's unfair that the wealthiest, the largest corporations who can afford the best attorneys, the best accountants, take advantage of these special tax treatments that lobbyists have, along with lawmakers, have cooked into the books here.
Quick word, too. The reason why the government shutdown was averted, FEMA didn't need the money right away like they thought. They weren't actually out of money. And what David Plouffe was referring to is exactly some of the things that Senator Pat Toomey has been asked to tackle as a member of the super committee out of Pennsylvania. Senator, welcome back.
Morning, Brian.
Senator, when you saw David Plouffe or heard about David Plouffe's appearance with Chris Wallace and around the other Sunday talk shows, when he's starting to paint the guys, people with money as opposed to people without money, the people with money not paying their fair share, when the statistics show they are, what are your thoughts?
I think this is just not a constructive part of the dialogue. This is an effort to divide Americans, to try to foster resentment and anger. Look, we've got a tax code that's a complete disaster. It needs to be completely overhauled, in my view, both on the corporate side and on the individual side. But we ought to do this in a constructive way that'll generate more economic growth, more fairness, more simplicity. We don't need to spend our time trying to vilify people.
Right. It just makes you wonder about the American jobs plan that the president put forward, because evidently the Democrats in the House aren't for it, and there's no push from Harry Reid to put it for a vote in the Senate. But, Senator, I want to talk about your super committee role. I know you can't talk specifics, but in Sunday's New York Times, there was talk that maybe Democrats would look at this and say, we don't mind if we get to the 23rd of November and don't have a deal and have those automatic cuts go into play, which would include major cuts at the Pentagon. Do you sense that mood in the room from your across the aisle?
I don't sense any such mood. I'm sure there are some Democrats who hold that view, by the way, on Capitol Hill as a whole. But I can tell you, I think the members of the committee are very committed to finding a solution within the committee, to working hard. There's a very constructive attitude. So I don't think people are prepared to allow that alternative, which is really devastating to our national security.
I know the president's basically running for re-election, but here's what he said even at the California fundraiser. He's out on the West Coast raising a whole lot of money. He says, quote, has anybody been watching the debates lately? You've got a governor whose state is on fire denying climate change. You've got audiences cheering at the prospect of somebody dying because they don't have health care and booing a service member in Iraq because they're gay. That's not reflective of who we are. Is this helping you guys come together?
Now, unfortunately, look, the president has been in campaign mode for some time now. His so-called jobs plan isn't a serious jobs plan. It's a campaign speech. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, another stimulus bill, a big, massive tax increase. By their own calculation, if you do the math, every job that they claim they'll be able to create will cost 200,000 jobs, if they happen. And we know how it worked out last time. Yeah. So, unfortunately, the president is in campaign mode. That's not helpful to the work that we need to get done.
And when he talks about cutting, and you're talking about cutting, you wonder if you guys got to be on the same page. I understand that if there's a commonality between the Democrats and Republicans in the super committee, it's on tax reform. Can you have major tax reform agreed on by the 23rd of this November?
Well, again, I don't want to characterize what we're doing in the committee, but let me just say that tax reform is something that the committee would be empowered to consider. And I think we could do something substantial on the tax side by November 23rd. It wouldn't be easy, but none of this work's going to be easy. My own personal hope is that we will do something on the tax front, because I think the most pro-growth thing we can do would be to reform the tax code, simplify it, get rid of some of the unfair deductions and special interest loopholes, and lower marginal rates so that we would have a surge of investment and job creation and growth. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to take a serious look at that.
Senator, this is one of your expertise. I'm glad you're in the super committee. It's going to be interesting to see if you can meet the deadline, if you guys can come together. Thanks so much for joining us, Senator Pat Toomey.
Thanks for having me.
All right, coming up next on the rundown, a high school teacher